Hello and welcome to Chemistry Videos 101 by Amy Flanders. Today we're going to be talking about percent yield. First of all, what is the definition of percent yield? The definition of percent yield is the ratio of the actual versus the theoretical yield expressed as a percent. You probably have already learned about theoretical and actual yield, but let's review the terms quickly before we begin our video. First of all, theoretical yield is the maximum amount of product that can be produced from a given amount of reactant. This will often rarely happen. A good high school lab will be around 85% of the theoretical yield. Secondly, actual yield is the amount of product that is produced by the chemical reaction. The best way to understand percent yield is to go through a problem together. I have an example problem I will walk you through. We have a reaction of iron 3 phosphate with sodium sulfate to make iron 3 sulfate and sodium phosphate. First, let's write the balanced equation. You should get 2 iron phosphates, 3 sodium sulfates, 1 iron sulfate, and 2 sodium phosphates. A student is asked to perform the reaction with 25 grams of iron 3 phosphate and an excess of sodium sulfate. How many grams of iron 3 sulfate should be produced? You will need to use the mole highway to set up and solve the equation. First, you'll put 25 grams of iron phosphate and divide it by the molar mass of iron phosphate, obviously, which is 150.82 grams. You all know that 1 molar mass equals 1 mole of iron phosphate. And for every 2 moles of iron phosphate reactant, 1 mole of iron sulfate product will be produced. So of course, we need to multiply iron sulfate's molar mass, which is 399.9 grams, which again equals 1 mole of iron sulfate. Before you solve, cancel out any labels that can cancel each other out. For example, iron phosphate can cancel each other out, like this. And iron sulfate can cancel each other out. So in the end, you will end up with iron sulfate as your label. You should get a total answer of 33 grams of iron sulfate. What does this mean? This is the amount we should get if the reaction goes perfectly and there are no lab errors or chemical errors in the reaction. Remember, this is the theoretical yield. However, one of my fellow classmates performed this experiment and got the results of 18.5 grams of iron sulfate. We want to know what was the percent yield. First of all, let's go over the formula together. The formula is actual yield over theoretical yield times 100. So in this case, it would be 18.5 grams of iron sulfate over 33 grams of iron sulfate times 100. And you would get 56% yield. We only got a 56% yield. What does that mean? We only got about half of the amount of product that could maximally be produced. We should definitely try for a higher percent yield next time, so it could be closer to 85% during our next trial run. Congratulations, you just worked through a multi-step percent yield problem in this video. I have an extension to this problem you guys can do, which is a bonus problem. If I do this experiment and I use 15 grams of sodium sulfate and get 65% yield, how many grams of sodium sulfate will I yield? Remember, this time you're using the opposing reactant. Pause the video and I'll put the answer in the next slide. And the answer is 7.5 grams of sodium phosphate. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions about percent yield, please leave them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. Remember, like, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the bell for notifications about any new videos.